The old pickup truck coughed and wheezed as it climbed the winding mountain road. Behind the wheel, Lisa gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles had turned white. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, but the tears had stopped falling hours ago. Now there was only anger burning in her chest like a fire that wouldn't go out. In her jacket pocket, she could feel the newspaper clipping she had read 100 times. The headline was burned into her memory: "Local man dies in mountain highway accident." But it wasn't the headline that had brought her here. It was what old Mr. Peterson had told her at the funeral home. "I saw a big man walking away from the crash," he had whispered, glancing around like he was telling a secret. "Biggest fellow I ever seen. Had on a red shirt. Just walking away like nothing happened." That was all Lisa needed to hear. The police had called it an accident. They said her husband Tom had fallen asleep at the wheel. But Lisa knew better. Someone had killed her Tom, and that someone was hiding up in these mountains. The road got narrower as she climbed higher. Pine trees pressed in on both sides, their branches so thick they blocked out most of the afternoon sun. Lisa had never been this far up the mountain before. Tom used to talk about going camping up here, but they never found the time. Now they never would. She almost missed the turnoff. It was just a dirt path that looked like it might lead to nowhere. But the mailbox at the bottom had a name painted on it in faded letters. This had to be the place. The truck bounced and rattled over rocks and holes as she drove up the narrow driveway. The cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. It was bigger than she had expected, built from dark logs that looked like they had been there for decades. Smoke drifted up from the chimney, and she could see a vegetable garden off to one side. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful for someone who had just killed a man. Lisa turned off the engine and sat for a moment, her heart pounding. What was she doing here? She was a small woman, barely over 5 feet tall. If this man really was as big as Mr. Peterson said, what chance did she have? But the anger inside her was stronger than the fear. Tom deserved justice even if she had to get it herself. She got out of the truck and walked toward the cabin. Her legs felt shaky, but she forced herself to keep moving. The wooden steps creaked under her feet as she climbed to the front porch. She raised her hand to knock, but before she could, the door swung open. The man who appeared in the doorway was even bigger than she had imagined. He had to duck his head to fit through the door frame. His shoulders were so wide they nearly touched both sides of the opening. He had a thick brown beard and hands the size of dinner plates, but it was his eyes that stopped her cold. They weren't the eyes of a killer. They were sad and tired, like he hadn't slept in days either. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Lisa felt her carefully planned speech disappear from her mind. All the angry words she had practiced in the truck seemed to stick in her throat. "You're here about the accident," the big man said finally. His voice was deep and quiet, not at all what she had expected. "Accident?" The word came out like a hiss. "You call killing my husband an accident?" The man's face crumpled like she had hit him. He stepped back, and for a moment Lisa thought he might close the door. Instead, he opened it wider. "You better come in," he said. Lisa hesitated. Every instinct told her not to go into this stranger's house, but she had come too far to turn back now. She followed him inside, ready to run if she needed to. The inside of the cabin was not what she had expected. It was clean and neat, with handmade furniture and books lining the walls. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, and the smell of coffee hung in the air. It felt like a home, not the lair of a killer. The big man gestured to a chair near the fireplace. "Please sit down." "I'll stand," Lisa said, crossing her arms. He nodded and sat down heavily in a chair that groaned under his weight. Up close, Lisa could see how tired he looked. His eyes were bloodshot and his clothes were wrinkled like he had slept in them. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lisa. Lisa Chen. And you killed my husband Tom yesterday morning." The man flinched like she had slapped him. "My name's Jake Mountain. And I didn't kill your husband. But he's dead because of me. What's the difference?" Lisa shot back. Jake was quiet for a long time, staring into the fire. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I was out walking early yesterday morning. I do that sometimes when I can't sleep. I saw this truck on the side of the road with its hazard lights flashing. I thought someone needed help." Lisa felt her heart start to race. This was it. This was the confession she had come for. "I started walking toward the truck," Jake continued. "But when I got closer, I realized it was empty. Someone had just abandoned it there. I was standing in the road looking around when I heard another truck coming fast around the bend." He paused and rubbed his face with his big hands. The driver saw me and swerved to avoid hitting me, but he was going too fast. The truck went off the road and hit the rocks. Lisa felt the room spin around her. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Jake got up and walked to a desk in the corner. He came back with a wallet and handed it to her. "This was your husband's. I pulled it from the truck before the paramedics got there." Lisa's hands shook as she took the wallet. It was Tom's, all right. His driver's license smiled up at her from behind the plastic window. She could see his credit cards and the photo of her he always carried. But there was something else. A $20 bill was missing from the cash section. "You robbed him," she said, her voice rising. "No," Jake said quickly. "I gave that 20 to the paramedic. Your husband was still alive when I got to him, but he was hurt bad. The paramedic said they needed exact change for something at the hospital. I don't know what. Everything happened so fast." Lisa looked at Jake's face and saw only truth there. But she didn't want truth. She wanted someone to blame. "If you hadn't been standing in the road, this never would have happened," she said. "You're right," Jake replied. "That's why I haven't slept since it happened. That's why I was about to drive down to the police station when you showed up." Lisa looked around the cabin again. She noticed things she had missed before. Empty beer bottles on the kitchen counter. Papers scattered on the desk that looked like they might be some kind of letter. A suitcase sitting by the door, half-packed. "You were running away," she accused. "No," Jake said. "I was turning myself in. I wrote a confession last night. I was going to give it to the sheriff this morning." He walked back to the desk and picked up a sheet of paper. His handwriting was neat and careful, like a child's. Lisa read the first few lines and felt something cold settle in her stomach. "To the police," it began. "My name is Jake Mountain, and I am responsible for the death of Tom Chen on Highway 7 yesterday morning. I was in the road when he came around the bend. He swerved to miss me and crashed. I tried to help him, but he died before the ambulance got to the hospital. I know I should have called you right away, but I was scared. I'm not good with people, and I didn't know what to say. But I can't live with this secret. I'm ready to face whatever punishment you think I deserve." Lisa read the letter twice before handing it back. Her anger was still there, but it felt different now. Confused. "Why didn't you call the police right away?" she asked. Jake sat back down, his big frame seeming to fold in on itself. "I've lived up here alone for 5 years. I came here after something bad happened in town. I don't like being around people anymore. They make me nervous. What bad thing?" Jake was quiet for so long that Lisa thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with pain. "There was a fire at the school where I worked. I was the janitor there. It was my job to check all the doors and windows before I left each night. But that day I was in a hurry. My mother was sick and I wanted to get to the hospital to see her." He stopped and took a shaky breath. "I missed one window, just one. But that's how the fire started. An electrical problem. If I had checked that window, I would have seen the sparks. I could have called the fire department. But I didn't." Lisa felt her throat tighten. "Was anyone hurt?" 3 kids and a teacher. They got trapped in the east wing. The smoke," Jake's voice broke. "They found them in a storage closet where they had tried to hide. The cabin was so quiet Lisa could hear the fire crackling in the fireplace. She tried to imagine this gentle giant hurrying through a school, missing one small detail that would cost 4 people their lives. The weight of that kind of guilt was something she couldn't even picture. "It wasn't your fault," she said softly. "Tell that to their families," Jake replied. "Tell that to the parents who trusted me to keep their kids safe." Lisa understood now why Jake lived alone up here. Why he was so quick to take blame for Tom's death. He had been carrying the weight of those 4 deaths for 5 years, and now he had added Tom to that burden. "The police investigated the fire," Jake continued. "They said it wasn't my fault. Electrical fires can start anywhere, anytime. But I knew the truth. If I had done my job right, those people would still be alive." Lisa sat down in the chair Jake had offered her earlier. Her legs suddenly felt too weak to hold her up. All the anger that had carried her up this mountain was draining away, leaving her feeling empty. Lisa didn't sleep that night. She lay in her empty bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about Jake Mountain. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, the way it had crumpled when she accused him of killing Tom. The genuine pain in his eyes when he talked about the school fire. The defeated slope of his massive shoulders. By morning, she had made a decision that surprised even her. She was going back up the mountain. The drive seemed shorter this time, maybe because she knew where she was going, or maybe because she wasn't running on pure anger anymore. When she pulled up to Jake's cabin, she saw him sitting on the front porch steps, still wearing the same wrinkled clothes from yesterday. A duffel bag sat beside him. He looked up when her truck door slammed, and she could see the confusion on his face. "I thought you were going to the police," Lisa said, walking toward him. "I was," Jake replied, standing up slowly. I was just sitting here for a minute." Lisa could see why. The view from his porch was beautiful. The mountains stretched out in every direction, covered in trees that were just starting to change color. It would be hard to leave a place like this, especially if you knew you might never come back. "Can I ask you something?" Lisa said. Jake nodded. "When you found Tom, was he in pain?" Jake's face softened. He was unconscious. The paramedic said he probably didn't feel anything after the first few seconds. Lisa felt a small weight lift from her chest. She had been imagining Tom suffering, calling for her, dying alone and scared. "Thank you for telling me that." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Lisa wasn't sure why she had come back, what she had expected to accomplish. "Would you like some coffee?" Jake asked. "I made a pot before I was going to leave." Lisa nodded and they went inside. The cabin looked different in the morning light. Neater somehow, like Jake had been cleaning up before he left. The papers on his desk were stacked in a tidy pile. The empty bottles from yesterday were gone. Jake poured her coffee in a mug that was clearly handmade. It was a little lopsided but had a nice weight to it. "Did you make this?" Lisa asked. "Yeah, I took up pottery a few years ago. Helps keep my hands busy." Lisa looked around and noticed other things Jake had made. A wooden table, shelves carved with intricate designs, a chess set where each piece looked like it had been carved by hand. "You're very talented," she said. Jake shrugged. "Gives me something to do. Gets lonely up here sometimes." "Is that why you were out walking yesterday morning? Because you were lonely?" "Partly." Jake sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "I don't sleep well. Haven't for years. When I can't sleep, I walk. Usually I stick to the trails, but yesterday I thought I'd walk down to the main road and back." "How often do you go into town?" "Maybe once a month. To get supplies. I try to go early in the morning when there aren't many people around." Lisa tried to imagine what that must be like. Living alone for 5 years, avoiding people, carrying the weight of what happened at the school. No wonder he had panicked after Tom's accident. "Jake," she said carefully, "what really happened yesterday morning? I mean, exactly what happened?" Jake set down his coffee mug and rubbed his face. "I woke up around 5:30. I'd been having the dreams again." "Dreams?" "About the fire. They come and go. When I have them, I can't get back to sleep. So I got dressed and decided to take a walk." Lisa nodded, encouraging him to continue. "I took the trail that leads down toward the main road. It's about a 2-mile walk. When I got close to the highway, I could see this truck parked on the shoulder with its flashers on." "Tom's truck?" "No, a different one. An old blue pickup. I thought maybe someone was having car trouble, so I walked down to see if I could help." Jake paused and took a sip of coffee. "But when I got there, the truck was empty. The driver door was open, keys still in the ignition, but no one around. I thought maybe they had walked to get help or something." "What did you do?" "I was going to close the door and take the keys so no one would steal the truck. But then I heard another vehicle coming. Fast, too fast for that curve." Lisa felt her heart start to race. "That was Tom. I guess so. I was standing right in the middle of the road looking around for whoever owned the blue truck. When I looked up, I could see the headlights coming around the bend." Jake's hands were shaking now. "I tried to get out of the way, but I'm not exactly quick on my feet. The driver saw me and yanked the wheel hard to the left. The truck went off the road and hit the rocks. What happened to the blue truck? I don't know. By the time I got to your husband, it was gone. Whoever owned it must have come back and driven away while I was trying to help." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. So someone else was there? Someone who saw the accident and just left? Must have been. I was so focused on your husband I didn't even notice until later. Lisa stood up and started pacing around the small kitchen. "Did you tell the police about the blue truck?" Jake shook his head. "I never talked to the police. I was too scared. I ran. But Jake, don't you see? If there was another truck there, if someone else saw what happened, that changes everything." "Does it?" Jake asked. "Your husband is still dead. He's still dead because I was standing in the road. But you were trying to help someone. That's not the same as just being careless. Jake looked at her with those sad eyes. Tell that to the kids who died in the fire. I was trying to help my mother that night too. Lisa sat back down and reached across the table to touch Jake's hand. His skin was rough and calloused from years of working with wood and stone. Jake, can I tell you something about Tom? Jake nodded. Tom was a volunteer firefighter. He'd been doing it for 10 years. You know how many calls he went on where he couldn't save someone? Where he was just a few minutes too late, or the fire was too big, or the accident was too bad? Jake was listening carefully. It used to eat him up inside. He'd come home from those calls and just sit at the kitchen table not saying anything. I could see him going over it in his head, wondering what he could have done differently. How did he deal with it? His captain told him something that I never forgot. He said, "The only people who never make mistakes are the people who never try to help." Tom held on to that. He said it reminded him that caring enough to try was better than not caring at all. Jake was quiet for a long time. Your husband sounds like he was a good man. He was. And you know what else? He would understand what you were trying to do yesterday morning. He would understand why you were in that road. Tears started running down Jake's face. But he's still dead. Yes, he is. And I'm never going to be okay with that. But blaming yourself isn't going to bring him back. And it's not going to help anyone else either. Lisa got up and refilled both their coffee mugs. When she sat back down, she had made another decision. I want you to tell me about the school fire, she said. Jake's face went pale. Why? Because I think you've been carrying this alone for too long. And I think Tom's death is just piling more weight on something that was already too heavy. You don't want to hear about that. Yes, I do. I want to understand. Jake was quiet for so long that Lisa thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally started talking, his voice was barely above a whisper. It was a Friday afternoon in November, cold and rainy. I was running late because I'd had to deal with a broken water pipe in the basement. My mother had called and said the doctor wanted to see the family right away. Lisa could see how hard this was for him, but she didn't interrupt. I was rushing through my checklist. Check all the windows. Check all the doors. Turn off all the lights. Set the alarm. I thought I had done everything, but I missed the window in the art room. What happened? There was an old electrical outlet near that window. The wiring was bad, and when it got wet from the rain, it sparked. If I had checked the window, I would have seen water coming in. I would have seen the sparks. Jake stopped and wiped his eyes with his sleeve. The fire started around 7 o'clock. Most of the building was empty, but there was a basketball game in the gym. Some kids were in the hallway and a teacher was in her classroom grading papers. How did they get trapped? The fire spread faster than anyone expected. The exits got blocked by smoke. They found the 4 of them in a storage closet. They were trying to wait for help. Lisa felt her throat tighten. What were their names? Jake looked surprised by the question. Why do you want to know? Because they were real people. They had families who loved them. They deserved to be remembered by name. Jake nodded slowly. The teacher was Mrs. Rodriguez. She taught 2nd grade. The kids were Billy Thompson, age 7, Amy Walsh, age 8, and Kevin Park, age 6. Tell me about them. Billy loved dinosaurs. He used to stop by my closet every morning to tell me a new dinosaur fact. Amy was always drawing pictures. She gave me one once, a picture of the school with all the kids playing outside. Kevin was shy, but he had the biggest smile when someone was nice to him. Lisa could see that Jake had cared deeply about these children. That made their deaths even more tragic. And Mrs. Rodriguez? She'd been teaching for 20 years. She knew every kid's name, even the ones who weren't in her class. She used to bring me coffee sometimes when she saw me working late. They sound like wonderful people. They were, and they died because I was in a hurry. Lisa was quiet for a moment, thinking about what Tom would say if he were he. Lisa called in sick to work for the rest of the week. She told her boss she needed time to handle things after Tom's funeral, which was true enough. What she didn't mention was that she was spending her days on a mountain with the man who had caused her husband's death. It had been 3 days since their conversation about the school fire, and Lisa found herself returning to Jake's cabin each morning. She told herself she was trying to understand what had happened to Tom, but the truth was more complicated than that. Jake made her breakfast. On the 2nd day, scrambled, eggs and bacon cooked on an old cast-iron skillet. The food was simple but good, and they ate in comfortable silence while watching the sunrise through the kitchen window. You don't have to keep coming up here, Jake said as they finished eating. I know, Lisa replied. But I want to. Why? Lisa had been asking herself the same question. I think because talking to you is the closest I can get to understanding what Tom went through in those last moments. And because... She paused, not sure how to put it into words. Because I think you need someone to talk to. Jake nodded slowly. I haven't had a real conversation with another person in months. It's nice. That afternoon, Jake showed her around his property. He had built everything himself. The cabin, the workshop, even the little bridge that crossed the creek behind his house. His vegetable garden was neat and well-tended, with rows of carrots, potatoes, and late-season tomatoes. You're completely self-sufficient up here, Lisa observed. Pretty much. I hunt for meat, grow my own vegetables, cut my own firewood. The only things I have to buy in town are coffee, sugar, and supplies for my woodworking. Don't you miss people? Jake was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. But people are complicated. Up here, it's just me and the animals and the trees. Nobody gets hurt because of my mistakes. Except yesterday, Tom got hurt anyway. Yeah, Jake said sadly. I guess there's no escaping it. That evening, Lisa found herself telling Jake about Tom. How they had met at a coffee shop when she was in college. How he had spilled his drink on her textbook and spent an hour helping her recopy her notes. How he had proposed on their second anniversary by hiding the ring in her morning coffee mug. He sounds like he was a romantic, Jake said. He was, in his own goofy way. He used to leave me little notes in my lunch. Nothing fancy, just things like have a good day or don't forget you're awesome. I still have a box full of them at home. That's sweet. What about you? Were you ever married? Jake shook his head. Came close once. Her name was Rachel. We were engaged when the fire happened. She tried to stick by me afterward, but... He shrugged. I wasn't easy to be around. I pushed her away until she finally gave up and left. Do you regret that? Every day. But she deserved better than a man who couldn't sleep through the night without screaming. Lisa felt her heart break a little for this lonely man. You still have nightmares? Not as often as I used to. But yeah, sometimes I wake up smelling smoke that isn't there. On the third day, Jake took her to see his workshop. It was a separate building behind the cabin, filled with tools and half-finished projects. The smell of sawdust and wood stain filled the air. This is beautiful, Lisa said, running her hand along a rocking chair Jake was working on. It's for a woman in town. Her husband died last year, and she mentioned that she missed sitting on their porch together. I thought maybe a rocking chair would help her feel close to him. Lisa looked at Jake in surprise. You made this for a stranger? Not exactly a stranger, Mrs. Patterson. She's the librarian. She's always been kind to me when I come to town, even after everything. How does she know you? I used to do odd jobs around town before I moved up here. Fixed things, built things. Mrs. Patterson hired me to build some new shelves for the library. Lisa could see the care Jake had put into the rocking chair. Every joint was perfect, every curve smooth as silk. Jake, this is incredible work. You could make a living doing this? I do, sort of. I sell a few pieces each year to pay for supplies and taxes. But I don't advertise or anything. Word just gets around. Why not? You're incredibly talented. Jake looked uncomfortable. I don't like drawing attention to myself. People remember what happened at the school. They see me and think about those kids who died. But this woman, Mrs. Patterson, she still talks to you. She still asks you to make things for her. Some people are more forgiving than others. Lisa walked around the workshop, looking at the various projects in different stages of completion. There was a toy chest carved with animals, a dining room table with intricate leaf patterns, and a small shelf shaped like a tree. Who are these for? The toy chest is for the Peterson family. They're having their first baby. The table is for the Nguyens. They just bought their first house. The shelf is for the library. Mrs. Patterson wants to start a children's corner. Lisa realized that despite his isolation, Jake was still connected to the community in his own quiet way. He knew who was getting married, who was having babies, who needed help. He was helping them even though he wouldn't let them help him. Jake, can I ask you something personal? Sure. What do you think would happen if you moved back to town? Jake stopped sanding the rocking chair and looked at her. I can't do that. Why not? Because every time I see a child, I think about Billy and Amy and Kevin. Every time I pass the school, I remember finding them in that closet. His voice broke. I can't live with those reminders every day, but you're living with them anyway. You just told me you wake up smelling smoke that isn't there. You can't run away from your memories, Jake. They follow you wherever you go. Jake sat down heavily on a sawdust-covered stool. So what am I supposed to do? Go back and pretend everything is normal? No. Go back and help make sure nothing like that ever happens again. What do you mean? Lisa had been thinking about this since yesterday. You know more about building safety than almost anyone in town. You spent 3 years checking every window, every door, every electrical outlet in that school. You know where the dangerous spots are. So maybe instead of hiding from what happened, you could use what you learned to help other people. Maybe you could inspect buildings. Maybe you could teach people about fire safety. Maybe you could make sure other janitors know what to look for. Jake stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. You want me to go back to doing the job that got 4 people killed? No, I want you to use your experience to save lives instead of hiding from it. Lisa, I can't, I just can't. Why not? Because what if I make another mistake? What if I miss something again and someone else dies? Lisa sat down on a wooden crate across from him. Jake, what if you don't try and someone dies because you weren't there to catch something that only you would have noticed? Jake was quiet for a long time, turning this idea over in his mind. I never thought about it that way. Tom used to say that the opposite of courage isn't fear. It's giving up. He said the bravest people are the ones who are terrified but do the right thing anyway. Your husband sounds like he was a wise man. He was. And he would tell you that those 4 people didn't die so you could spend the rest of your life punishing yourself. They died so you could learn from what happened and make sure it never happens again. Jake picked up his sandpaper and started working on the rocking chair again, but Lisa could see he was thinking hard about what she had said. There's something else, Lisa said. Something I've been thinking about since yesterday. What's that? You said the police investigated the fire and decided it wasn't your fault. That electrical fires can start anywhere, anytime. Yeah, but nothing. Jake, what if the fire would have started even if you had checked that window? What if the wiring was so bad that it was going to fail no matter what? I would have seen the sparks. Maybe, or maybe the sparks didn't start until later. Maybe the rain didn't even cause it. Maybe it was just old wiring that finally gave out. Jake stopped sanding. You don't know that. And you don't know that checking the window would have prevented anything. You've been assuming the worst-case scenario for 5 years. What if you're wrong? But what if I'm right? Then you made a mistake. A terrible, tragic mistake. But Jake, you were trying to help your mother. You were rushing because someone you loved needed you. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. Jake set down his sandpaper and looked at her with tears in his eyes. Why are you being so kind to me? I'm the reason your husband is dead. Lisa felt her own eyes fill with tears. Because Tom would want me to. Because those 4 people who died in the fire would want me to. And because... She paused, struggling to find the words. Because I think maybe helping you heal is part of how I heal too. They sat in silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. The afternoon sun slanted through the workshop windows, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air. Lisa, Jake said finally. Can I tell you something? Of course. Yesterday was the first time in 5 years that I told anyone about the fire. Really told them, I mean. Not just the basic facts, but how I felt about it. How does it feel to talk about it? Scary, but also lighter somehow. Like maybe I don't have to carry it all by myself anymore. Lisa nodded. Tom used to say that pain shared is pain divided. He really did have a lot of wise sayings, didn't he? He collected them. He had a notebook. Lisa spent the weekend going through Tom's things, something she'd been avoiding since the funeral. She found his phone in the glove compartment of his work truck, its screen cracked but still functional. When she charged it and looked through his messages, she found something that made her heart race. A text from his boss sent at 5:47 a.m. the morning of the accident. Emergency at the Johnson site. Water main burst. Need you here ASAP. Another text, this one from Tom to his boss at 6:15 a.m. On my way. We'll be there in 30 minutes. Lisa stared at the phone screen. Tom had been rushing to work because of an emergency. That explained why he was driving so fast on the mountain road. It also explained why he might have been tired. He had worked a double shift the day before and was probably running on very little sleep. On Monday morning, she drove back up to Jake's cabin with the phone in her hand. I found something, she said as soon as Jake opened the door. She showed him the text messages. Jake read them twice, his face growing pale. He was rushing to help people, Jake said quietly. Just like you were when you missed checking that window, Lisa replied. Sometimes good people make dangerous choices when they're trying to help. Jake invited her in for coffee, but Lisa could see he was shaken by this new information. Does this make it better or worse? He asked. I don't know, Lisa admitted, but it makes it more human. They were still talking about the implications when they heard the sound of car doors slamming outside. Lisa looked through the window and felt her stomach drop. Oh no, she said. What? It's my sister. And she brought the police. Through the window, they could see Lisa's sister Jenny marching toward the cabin with 2 sheriff's deputies behind her. Jenny's face was set in the determined expression Lisa knew all too well. How did she find me? Lisa wondered aloud. Your truck isn't exactly hard to spot, Jake said grimly. What do you want to do? Lisa looked at Jake's face and saw resignation there. He was ready to give up, to confess to something that might not even be his fault. I want to tell them the truth, she said. The knock on the door was sharp and official. Jake opened it to find Jenny flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Are you Jake Mountain? One of the deputies asked. Yes, sir. I'm Deputy Martinez and this is Deputy Chen. We'd like to ask you some questions about the accident on Highway 7 last Thursday morning. Lisa stepped into view. Jenny, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? Jenny's voice rose to a near shout. What are you doing here? Do you have any idea how worried I've been? You disappeared for 4 days without telling anyone where you were going. I had to track down your cell phone to find you up here with him. She pointed at Jake like he was some kind of monster. Jenny, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You found the man who killed Tom, and instead of calling the police, you're up here playing house with him. Deputy Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, if you could please step outside, we'd like to speak with Mr. Mountain privately. No, Lisa said firmly. I'm staying. Lisa, please, Jake said quietly. Let me handle this. I said no. Whatever you have to say to them, you can say in front of me. Deputy Chen opened his notebook. Mr. Mountain, were you present at the scene of the motor vehicle accident on Highway 7 last Thursday at approximately 6:30 a.m.? Yes, sir. Can you tell us what happened? Jake told the same story he had told Lisa, about the abandoned blue truck and trying to help. The deputies took notes and asked follow-up questions. Lisa watched their faces, trying to read their expressions. Why didn't you report this to the police immediately? Deputy Martinez asked. I was scared, Jake admitted. I have a history with accidents. I didn't think anyone would believe me. What kind of history? Jake told them about the school fire. Lisa could see the deputies' attitudes change as they recognized his name. This was the man who had been blamed for the deaths of 4 people, even though the official investigation had cleared him. Mr. Mountain, Deputy Chen said carefully, we've been investigating this accident for several days. We have some information that might interest you. What kind of information? Lisa asked. We found the blue truck you described. It was reported stolen from a construction site about 5 miles from here. The owner said it had been missing since Wednesday night. Jake looked stunned. Stolen? Yes, sir. And we found it abandoned in a grocery store parking lot about 10 miles south of the accident site. The person who stole it must have come back for it while you were trying to help Mr. Chen. But who would steal a truck just to abandon it on the highway? Lisa asked. Deputy Martinez exchanged a look with his partner. We have reason to believe it was teenagers joyriding. We found some empty beer cans in the truck and fingerprints that matched 2 16-year-old boys from town. So Jake was right, Lisa said. Someone else was there. It appears so. And Mrs. Chen, we also found something else. Your husband had been working 18-hour days for the past week. His employer confirmed that he had worked until 10 p.m. the night before the accident and was called back in at 6 a.m. for an emergency. Lisa felt her breath catch. He fell asleep, didn't he? The evidence suggests that your husband may have been experiencing microsleep, brief episodes of sleep that can happen when someone is severely fatigued. It would explain why he was unable to react quickly enough when he saw Mr. Mountain in the road. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. So it really was an accident, yes, sir. A tragic accident caused by a combination of factors. The stolen truck, your presence in the road, and Mr. Chen's fatigue. No single person was responsible. Jenny had been listening to all of this with growing confusion. But he ran away from the scene. That makes him guilty of something, right? Actually, Deputy Chen said, Mr. Mountain never left the scene. We have a witness who saw him performing CPR on Mr. Chen until the paramedics arrived. We also have the paramedics' report. which confirms that Mr. Mountain rode in the ambulance to the hospital and stayed until Mr. Chen was pronounced dead. Lisa stared at Jake. You stayed with him? You didn't tell me that. Jake's eyes filled with tears. He was unconscious, but I held his hand. I told him his wife loved him. I didn't want him to die alone. The room fell silent. Even Jenny seemed stunned by this revelation. Mr. Mountain, Deputy Martinez said gently, you're not in any trouble here. We would have liked to speak with you sooner, but we understand why you were reluctant to come forward. So what happens now? Jake asked. Nothing. The case is closed. It was a tragic accident, but no laws were broken. After the deputies left, Jenny turned to Lisa with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. I thought he had hurt you or something. When you disappeared without telling anyone, I just assumed the worst. I should have called, Lisa admitted. I just needed time to figure things out. Jenny looked at Jake, who was sitting quietly in his chair, still processing what the deputies had told them. Mr. Mountain, she said hesitantly, I owe you an apology too. I came here ready to see you arrested. I didn't know you tried to save my brother-in-law's life. Jake nodded but didn't speak. Lisa could see that he was overwhelmed by everything that had happened. Jenny, could you give us a few minutes alone? Lisa asked. Of course. I'll wait in the car. After Jenny left, Lisa sat down next to Jake. How are you feeling? I don't know, Jake said honestly. For 5 years, I've been telling myself that I'm a danger to other people, that I cause accidents and people die because of me. But now you know that sometimes bad things just happen and it's nobody's fault. But those kids at the school, those kids died in a fire caused by faulty wiring. You said yourself that the electrical system was old. Maybe that outlet would have failed that night no matter what you did. Jake was quiet for a long time. It's hard to let go of something you've believed for so long. I know. But Jake, you have a choice now. You can keep punishing yourself for things that weren't your fault, or you can start living again. I don't know how to do that. Lisa thought about Tom and what he would say in this situation. You start small. You take it one day at a time. And you let the people who care about you help you. What people? I don't have anybody. You have me. Jake looked at her in surprise. Lisa, you don't owe me anything. Your husband is still dead. Yes, he is. And I'll always be sad about that. But Tom wouldn't want me to spend the rest of my life angry at someone who tried to save his life. He'd want me to honor his memory by helping people who are hurting. Is that what you're doing? Helping me because of Tom? Lisa considered this. Partly. But also because I've gotten to know you these past few days, and I think you're a good person who's been carrying too much pain for too long. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the afternoon light filter through the windows. Lisa, Jake said finally, what if I wanted to move back to town? Would you help me? Of course. But are you sure you're ready for that? No. But I think maybe being ready is less important than being willing to try. Lisa smiled for the first time since Tom's death. I think Tom would have liked you. You think so? I know so. He always said the measure of a person wasn't whether they fell down, but whether they got back up again. Jake nodded slowly. Maybe it's time for me to get back up. As they talked about practical things, finding Jake an apartment in town, helping him get his woodworking business going. 6 months later, Lisa drove up the familiar mountain road with her daughter Mia in the passenger seat. The 10-year-old had been quiet for most of the drive, nervously playing with the friendship bracelet she had made the night before. Are you sure he's nice, Mom? Mia asked as they turned onto the dirt road leading to Jake's cabin. I'm sure, sweetheart. He's been very kind to me since Daddy died. But he's really big? Yes, he's very tall. But remember what we talked about? Sometimes the biggest people have the gentlest hearts. Lisa understood Mia's nervousness. She had been protective of her daughter ever since Tom's death, carefully controlling who they spent time with. But she felt ready for this step. Jake had become an important part of her healing process, and she wanted him to meet the most important person in her life. The cabin looked different than it had 6 months ago. Jake had built a new porch with a swing and planted flower boxes under the windows. The whole place seemed more welcoming, less like a hideout and more like a home. Jake was waiting for them on the porch, and Lisa could see he was nervous too. He had trimmed his beard and was wearing a clean flannel shirt. When he stood up, Mia grabbed Lisa's hand tightly. It's okay, Lisa whispered. Remember, he's more scared of you than you are of him. Jake walked slowly toward them. making sure not to move too quickly or tower over Mia more than necessary. "You must be Mia," he said in his gentle voice. "I'm Jake. Your mom has told me a lot about you." Mia looked up at him with wide eyes. "You're really tall," Jake smiled, "and I know. Sometimes I have to duck to get through doorways. It can be pretty inconvenient. Do you play basketball? I'm not very good at it, but I'm excellent at reaching things on high shelves." Despite herself, Mia giggled. "Mom makes me get the step stool to reach the cereal." "Well, if you ever need help with that, I'm your guy." Lisa watched the interaction with relief. Jake had a natural way with children that reminded her of Tom. Patient and kind, willing to get down to their level without talking down to them. "Jake," Lisa said, "would you like to show Mia what you've been working on?" "Only if she wants to see it." Mia looked up at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay." Jake led them around to the side of the cabin where he had set up an outdoor workshop. On a table covered with a tarp sat something roughly the size and shape of a park bench. "This is for your mom," Jake said to Mia. "But I wanted to make sure you liked it too before I finished it." He pulled away the tarp to reveal a beautiful wooden bench. The back was carved with intricate designs, flowers and vines and small animals. But what made Mia gasp was the carving in the center of the backrest. It was a portrait of a man in firefighter gear, holding the hand of a small girl. "Is that Daddy?" Mia whispered. "Yes," Jake said quietly. "Your mom showed me some pictures and told me about how much he loved being a firefighter, and how much he loved you." Mia reached out to touch the carving with one small finger. "It looks just like him." "There's more," Jake said. He pointed to small details carved into the design. "See this little bird here? Your mom said your dad called you his little sparrow. And this flower is a daisy because she said those were his favorite. And these numbers here, that's your birthday." Mia studied every detail of the bench, her eyes filling with tears. "It's beautiful. Daddy would love it, I hope so." That was the idea. Lisa felt her own tears starting. The bench was more than she had imagined when Jake first offered to make a memorial for Tom. It wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a work of art that captured Tom's spirit perfectly. "Jake, I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You don't need to thank me. Making it helped me too." Over the next few hours, Jake showed them around his property. He had been making changes slowly, turning his isolated retreat into a place where he could welcome visitors. He had built a fire pit with log benches around it, cleared some trails for walking, and even installed a tire swing on the big oak tree near the creek. "Can I try the swing?" Mia asked. "Of course, but let me give you a push. It's pretty high off the ground." Lisa watched as Jake gently helped Mia onto the swing and pushed her carefully, not too high, making sure she felt safe. His movements were careful and controlled, the way someone moves when they're afraid their size might accidentally hurt someone. "Higher," Mia called out, and Jake obliged, though Lisa could see he was being cautious. "He's nice," Mia told her mother when Jake went inside to get them drinks. "He's not scary at all. No, he's not. He just looks scary because he's so big." "Like the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk?" "Sort of. But remember how that story really ended? The giant wasn't mean. He was just misunderstood." When Jake came back with lemonade, Mia had a question for him. "Jake, why do you live up here all by yourself?" Lisa started to intervene, but Jake held up a hand. "It's okay. That's a fair question." He sat down on one of the log benches and looked thoughtfully at Mia. "A long time ago, I made some mistakes that hurt people. I felt so bad about it that I thought the best thing to do was stay away from everyone so I couldn't hurt anyone else. But you helped my mom when she was sad about Daddy." "Yes, I did. And you know what? Helping your mom taught me that hiding from people doesn't really solve anything. Sometimes the best way to make up for mistakes is to try to help other people." "Is that why you're moving back to town?" Jake glanced at Lisa, who smiled encouragingly. "That's part of it. I'm going to start a business checking buildings to make sure they're safe. Your mom thinks I'd be good at that." "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Jake admitted. "But your mom taught me that being scared doesn't mean you shouldn't try." As the afternoon went on, Lisa watched Mia's natural curiosity overcome her initial fear. She peppered Jake with questions about everything from why he had such a big beard, "It keeps my face warm in winter," to whether he had ever seen a bear. "Only once, and he was more scared of me than I was of him." Jake answered every question patiently, and Lisa could see him relaxing as he realized that Mia wasn't afraid of him anymore. When it was time for dinner, Jake surprised them by pulling out hamburger patties and hot dogs. I thought we could cook over the fire pit, he said. If that's okay with you, Mia, can I help? Absolutely. But we need to be very careful around fire. Your dad was a firefighter, so I bet he taught you about fire safety. Mia nodded seriously. He said fire is a tool, not a toy. That's exactly right. Smart dad. They cooked their dinner over the open fire, with Jake teaching Mia how to roast marshmallows for s'mores afterward. Lisa watched her daughter laugh and chatter with this gentle giant, and felt something heal inside her that she hadn't even realized was broken. Mom, Mia said later as they sat around the dying fire, can we come back and visit Jake again? Would you like that? Yeah, he's lonely up here, and he knows lots of cool stuff about animals and trees and building things. Jake looked touched by Mia's simple assessment. I'd like that too if it's okay with your mom. Of course it's okay. Jake's become a very good friend. As they prepared to leave, Jake carried the memorial bench to Lisa's truck. It took both of them to lift it into the bed, and Lisa marveled again at the craftsmanship. Are you sure you won't let me pay you for this? She asked. I'm sure. This was something I needed to do. Mia ran up and threw her arms around Jake's waist in an impulsive hug. He looked startled for a moment, then carefully hugged her back. Thank you for making the bench for Daddy, she said. Thank you for letting me meet you, Jake replied. Your dad would be very proud of what a brave, kind girl you are. As they drove home, Mia was full of plans for their next visit. Can we go hiking with Jake next time? He said he knows where there's a waterfall, and maybe he could teach me how to carve something. Do you think he'd show me how to make a bird? I think he'd love to teach you, Lisa said. Jake likes having people to share his skills with. Mom? Yes, sweetheart? I think Daddy would like Jake. Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. I think so too, baby. I think they would have been good friends. When they got home, they placed the memorial bench in the back garden where Tom had always planned to build a reading nook. It fit perfectly under the apple tree he had planted the year before he died. That night, after Mia was asleep, Lisa sat on the bench and looked up at the stars. For the first time since Tom's death, she felt truly at peace. The anger and blame that had consumed her for so long had been replaced by something better: understanding, forgiveness, and hope for the future. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jake. Thank you for bringing Mia to meet me. It means more than you know. See you next weekend for the house hunting. Lisa smiled as she typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Mia's already planning your next carpentry lesson. 3 months later, Lisa stood in the crowd gathered outside the new community center, watching as Jake cut the ribbon for the grand opening of mountain safety inspections. He had cleaned up nicely for the occasion, clean-shaven, wearing a suit that actually fit his massive frame, looking nervous but determined. The mayor was there, along with the fire chief and several other city officials. But Lisa was most pleased to see Mrs. Rodriguez's husband and the families of the other victims from the school fire. They had come not to protest or blame, but to support Jake's new mission of keeping other people safe. We're proud of you, Mrs. Rodriguez's husband told Jake after the ceremony.